Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the recent announcement of a brand new Disney Plus Power Rangers show yet again. I reported on it yesterday. Well, not reported. Let's not gas it up. I just talked about it. I let you guys know if you didn't know, but you probably already did. But anyway, I talked about it yesterday, gave my thoughts a little bit. But in this video, I wanted to give some expanded thoughts on some things. That's going to primarily be at the end. I'm going to kind of clarify some of the, well, try to clarify some of the confusion and questions people have. I don't have all the answers. I have some answers and some stuff we don't know, but I can kind of guesstimate about some things. I did finally read the comment section, and there was the usual suspects of blind Disney hate, but there was a surprising amount of people that were optimistic, and I appreciate that. See what these comments are like. Hopefully we can keep things civil. But anyway, first thing I want to address, which I did address in the video, is that Disney does not own Power Rangers again. They're just distributing this. Now, they might have some say in the show, but Hasbro is producing it. And some people were surprisingly confused by this. Like, this is one of those things that makes me think, do Power Rangers fans watch anything else? Because this is like no different than any of the other dozens, if not hundreds of shows that make deals with Netflix, Disney, Hulu, Max to air the shows. All those usually have their own originals where it's all in-house, something like Stranger Things and whatnot. But there are also so many shows that will just license to one of the streamers to be streamed on. And this is, in a way, no different than that. I mean, it's a little bit different because some of them is just like, hey, we're going to have Grey's Anatomy on Netflix or something like that. But it's kind of a midway point where it's a partnership where Hasbro still owns it, but they're licensing it out to Disney to be the exclusive streamer. But it's kind of like the Doctor Who situation where I'm sure they will have some level of say. We don't know what kind of level of say, though. It could be as simple as when it drops, how it drops, the episodes. They could have notes. I'm sure they're going to have notes, but we don't know what level. It could be 10%, it could be 50%. So I think it's best to reserve judgment on that. Like with Doctor Who, as much as people like to say it's Disney-fied and whatnot, I think a lot of that can be psychological, to be honest, because if you didn't tell me that Disney owned Doctor Who, like for the rights here, because they don't own it still, it's still BBC, I would never even think about it looking or feeling like Disney. And as far as I know, the only note they gave, like I said in yesterday's video, was one note in Church of Ruby Road about wanting a scene, kind of introducing the Doctor earlier, which wasn't a terrible note. They weren't like hey, I want a note in there that the Doctor has Disney propaganda. I'm sure people will find a way to, hate on that. But in general, we just don't know. But the point is that it is entirely possible Disney could have some say in how the series plays out that could impact it positively or negatively, but the whole Disney's gonna ruin it, blah, 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 I'm Chandler, blah, blah, blah. It's just so stupid. Let's just wait to see how much it's changed. But the point is, regardless, Disney has much less of a grasp on this. Like compared to Marvel, Star Wars, Wizards of Waverly Place, anything else they own, they don't have as much of a say compared to when they would actually own it. Speaking of, I've seen a lot of people celebrating the return of the Disney era. Now, I really appreciate seeing love for the Disney era because it's my GOAT. It's my favorite era. I love it so much. But I don't think this is going to be that. I mean, it could be a return to quality. It could be, and I expect it to be, honestly, considerably better than the Neo Saban / Hasbro era in regards to the show. Like, you don't have to try too hard. And there's some stuff I even liked in those eras. However, I don't think we're just going to magically go back to Jetix. Like, would that be cool? Honestly, I wouldn't be necessarily mad at that if they did a Jetix throwback or whatever, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. A lot of people are thinking that they're just going to go back to it, even with Doctor Who. I'm going to bring that up a lot, honestly, because I've been on a Doctor Who kick for over a year, because I did a rewatch for the 60th, and I've just been riding a high. I don't know, love that show. Anyway, the new show, going back to Russell T Davies, does feel very familiar. Like after the, Whitaker Chinball era, going back to that for the 60th and season 1 definitely felt familiar, but it also didn't feel the exact same as the original Russell T Davies 10 era. You just can't go back home. That's kind of the old saying. So it's not going to be that. Even if they tried to do it, it wouldn't feel the same, but it's definitely, I can't say for sure, but I'm like 90% sure it's not going to go back to that feel of Ninja Storm through Jungle Fury / RPM, which is an entirely different feel. Future Dawson here with one little note that I forgot to bring up in the video that was on my notes in regards to the whole going back to the Disney era thing. Another sentiment I see is like people saying, why would Disney buy it back? They hated it. First of all, the whole they hated it thing is such an oversimplification and another case of fans thinking that everything's out to get them in the brand. They just simply didn't care about continuing with it. They were more apathetic than anything. However, it's worth noting it's been over 10 years, 15 years. I'm sure there's still some people that worked on the brand there today, but it's entirely different structurally. The company is completely different than it was back in the day. What they did back in 2009 has absolutely no precedence over now. And that brings up the other thing too, is people are immediately now brainstorming, all right, we're going back to adaptions. Are we going back to adaptions? Honestly, we don't know a lot right now. All we have is that little blurb that says they're reimagining it for a new era. That could mean anything. That could mean Sentai adaptations. That could mean just a live-action reboot. It could be animated. Not animated. That's not animated. I just defeated my own point, but it could be like live action puppets. Like we don't know. I don't think it's gonna be that, but it could be anything. However, I would be shocked if we went back to Sentai adaptations. I did do a video within the last year talking about like what ifs of like what if Disney kept it, what if Saban Entertainment kept it, and I could see a world, a timeline out there in the multiverse where if Disney had kept Power Rangers on through Disney XD and it remained a staple for them, where it would maybe migrate to Disney Plus. However, we don't live in that world. I just don't think it would make sense for them to go back to something that would feel probably kind of antiquated to them. And even though I think it has its charms, and I wouldn't be mad if it returned one day, which I'll get into, I just don't see that as being a good, viable pitch for why Disney would pick it up. Especially with like the Percy Jackson directors and the talks of it being closer in tone and style to that. Not necessarily style, but you know what I mean. Probably at least somewhat-ish. And the Goosebumps series. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm prepared to eat crow because you never know. I'm a poet and I didn't even know I rhymed those words. But we've been through so many plot twists. I was thinking about this yesterday, from Hasbro buying it to like the slow downfall of Hasbro to the Playmates thing to the 2010 reversioning paradox time loop thing to this. So who knows? But I'm like 98% sure it's not that. It's fun to speculate, but I highly doubt we would go back to it. I feel that and I don't want to go back to that. I know I've been a broken record about that. It's not that I hate the old format, because obviously that's why I'm a fan, but I really want to see PR try to break out and do something different. And we tried it with 2017 and it didn't work out, but we've been circling this reboot for like 3 to 4 iterations now, and I think we just need to give it a try. I don't think like after this, if it fails, we should stop forever, but I do think if this does fail, maybe we do try to go back to something like that in some form, but we gotta at least give it a try, like a good, honest, full court press try. I just want to see that right now. Apparently though, take this with a grain of salt, because it was one of the news bits that came out with Jinsaku with this, is he did say that he's heard it's not mmpr, which could be a good thing. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some echoes in there. This is just my speculation. Like we might use the classic color scheme or something. You know, maybe have a Green Ranger in there. Like there might be some similarities there, but that's at least good news. But I think it's going to be kind of a wholly original type of thing. Also, something people have been speculating on, or immediately going back to, like I don't know why people think we're going to go back to 2007 all of a sudden, is that we're going to get back 35, 40 episode seasons, and I don't think that's going to happen. Like I said yesterday's video, I think probably 8 episodes. Goosebumps season 1 had 10. I don't know how many Percy Jackson had. I would love 13. I just rewatched most of the Marvel Netflix era before Born Again, and I think that was such a sweet spot for that because it really had time to breathe, but it was also concise. Obviously it's a different type of show, but it's funny because when it comes to PR, my stance on PR with episode count is I don't necessarily think it needs 50 episodes, but it's kind of like this weird clash with my thoughts on everything else, where I honestly think the amount of episodes a TV show needs should be a case-by-case basis. Do you need a 6-episode miniseries only? Great. Do you need 3 seasons of 24 episodes? Let's go for it. I think it should be like that and not be a standard, but it's definitely disheartening to see so many shows go to this miniseries format, 8, 9, 10 episodes only. And I do miss like the CW network type shows where you had 24 episodes. You had time to do mini arcs and holiday episodes and meaningful filler episodes, and you felt like you spent a year with them. So it's funny because when it comes to other TV, I want to see us bring back larger episode counts. Even 13 episodes was great. Like in those Marvel Netflix shows, it was almost like weirdly refreshing, even though I'd seen them before, to see like certain characters get subplots and have subplots in the shows, because we have like no time for that anymore. And it was kind of almost nostalgic and refreshing. So I want to see us go back to more episodes for regular TV, but with PR, I don't want to see it as small as 8, but I really am curious to see like a more focused Power Rangers type series that's 13 episodes. I think 13 would be the sweet spot if you can keep the episodes honestly around the Netflix length, like maybe 40, 50 minutes, but just do it case-by-case basis, so you can tell it like a contained story, more serialized, but you also still have time for subplots and side stories to build on each season. So I don't think it would go back to 30 episodes, though. I think that that's an absolute pipe dream. Like that's one I'm almost 100% sure would not happen, that we would go from anywhere to 30, 40 episodes. I think 13 would be the max, and I don't even think that's going to happen. Also, something I think is interesting that I just wanted to comment on about my thoughts is what I'm getting from this, just in terms of the tone, is I felt like when we were doing the Hasbro reboot with Netflix, that it felt like they were going to try to make it big, like try to get a resurgence, like Transformers or Turtles or whatever, and kind of go that direction. Whereas I feel like they're aiming for the middle here, or like aiming for the B tier. Whereas like Percy Jackson's a decently recognizable like YA series. Like I've heard of it from the movies, from the books, from this recent show, and I didn't see it like plastered everywhere or anything. But I definitely, as someone who didn't have it on his radar, saw it around. And I feel like that's kind of the level they're aiming for, instead of trying to make Power Rangers have a resurgence like Transformers once did, or like Turtles did sort of recently. they're just trying to make it something that has that level of like Percy Jackson, where it's kind of recognizable to some people. You might get people that liked it, but you also might catch some new fans and might have a decently sustainable success, but not necessarily something that's going to be a juggernaut. And I think that's kind of smart. I do absolutely think the Power Rangers brand has the potential to be bigger, because I think it has a lot of the ingredients Transformers and Turtles did, and we've talked about this ad nauseum on how unfortunately PR is in a weird position where it can't break out of this perception. But I think actually aiming for that tier, if that's what they're doing, is kind of smart, because it just kind of sets your expectations better for something that can be better, but you're not like putting all your eggs in one basket, which I think is great. Also reminded me, thinking about seeing Percy Jackson around, people talking about the promotion and how it's going to be promoted. We'll have to see. Like, I know people like to crap on Disney, and that's something I'm going to get into in a minute, but they did do a lot of promotion for Doctor Who. Now they're kind of easing off because it's not doing so well for them, or at least not as well as they thought. I hear mixed things. I don't think it was a disaster, but I definitely don't think it did as well. But I'm going to be honest with you, I think that was maybe on Space Babies a bit. I don't know. I liked season 1, but like, it didn't feel like a good entry point season for me. I don't know. I think it was a lot on the show in a lot of ways, but they did a full court press for that first season. I think the second time I only saw the most promotion for that was a weird sentence, I'm a good English speaker, but the second only time I saw more promotion was like when we had 13, because it was the first woman doctor, so I saw a lot of ads for that. But even then, I saw ads for season 1 everywhere. I think there was like billboards and stuff, so I don't think they're going to go that crazy. But I think that we can expect maybe a decent level of promotion for Disney when it first starts, at least. But if it doesn't do so well, we'll see after that. So sort of question I wanted to address before I get into my final 2 points, which is the Disney hate and then just my overall hopes, is people are questioning too, like, what's going to happen with the toys? I'd be shocked if there weren't toys, because Playmates obviously is doing the mmpr reversioning. I don't know, so that's a good answer. It depends on how much Hasbro wants to be involved. Like, obviously right now they're licensing it out to Disney and all this stuff, but they're still producing it. So if they're back on board and this does successful, it might not be impossible for them to bring back theirs, but they could also have Playmates do it. It also depends on the age range, so I don't know. I think there will be toys, but I'm not honestly too concerned about that, because I'm like 100% sure there'll be toys. They'll just be coming from one or the other, and I think they'll be pretty decent one way or the other. Now, let's just talk about the Disney hate. You know what? We were so fortunate for so many years on this channel and in the community in general that it took years for the woke boys to show up with the woke, 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 woke stuff, and then unfortunately the last few years flooded with those comments. And then I only had to deal with all the stupid anti-Disney stuff when I like peeked into other fandoms, which I rarely get into, because I love Star Wars, honestly, probably actually my favorite brand. But I only really watch like Star Wars Explained, which is a fantastic channel. But of course, you know, you get recommendations of channels with angry red thumbnails and having to deal with all that, like, everything Disney does is bad, us fans are the heroes. You're not. Now, unfortunately, because of this is legitimately the only thing I don't like about this announcement, is this stupid, blind, anti-Disney hate is arrived. Now, there is legitimate criticisms at Disney for everything. I'm not saying there's not. I'm not on their side. But there's no sides for me. I just take it as it comes. Like, there are some things I like that they do, sometimes I don't. I weigh it on a case-by-case basis instead of having the juvenile Disney bad take. Not to mention, speaking of Disney bad takes, people talk like Disney is like one entity that just goes around ruining everything. There are so many facets. Like, things you don't like that Star Wars did has nothing to do with what's going on with Marvel. Like, it's completely different, like, things. Like, sure, you have corporate leaders making the bigger decisions. Like, the stuff that happens in Star Wars won't affect Marvel and vice versa, and it's not going to affect Wizards of Waverly Place. I don't know why I keep bringing that up all of a sudden, but it's like so many different departments, and this is like a totally different department where they're, like I said, they don't even own it. So, like, your criticisms of what they're doing with Star Wars or Marvel or Wizards of Waverly Place will not affect this at all. It's like completely separate departments. So that's why it's stupid to like paint them as just one necessary evil villain. It's just honestly so silly. And the idea that literally everything they've done is bad and unappealing to everyone, the odds of that are just impossible. And it gets so exhausting to deal with that closed-minded thinking. And also the idea that people are saying they're trying to kill the brand by doing this. The idea that these franchises purposefully hate these brands and want to kill them is the dumbest thing. There are so many franchises that have made dumb decisions that have killed them, but very rarely is it true that they have a vendetta against it. Stop taking it so personally. And also, the best way to kill a brand is not to revive a dead brand with a new show. Think, McFly, think! Anyway, just my thoughts on it, kind of just echoing yesterday, like, I'm cautiously optimistic. Now, a lot of people are even doubting this is a real thing. Could fall through, who knows? I haven't seen an official Disney press release, but this has hit like all the major news outlets and stuff. It's not a fake story. I can understand why people are gun shy about it. But I'm cautiously optimistic. Because of the way we've been through the ringer with the Hasbro reboots ups and downs, I'm prepared for it to get canceled like after the first season or before it even starts production. Like I said, I hope we get more steady updates to sort of prove to us. We're like an abusive relationship where we need reassurance, but like reassurance that it's going to be a real thing. But a lot about this sounds good to me. Like, I would love it to be more what they were doing with the 2017 movie or what they sounded like they wanted to do with the reboot, but I think this aiming for the middle thing might be kind of good, where you're trying to make it take off, but you're not like banking on it being the next huge thing, especially in this era where there is a little bit of sort of souring on superhero content and stuff like that. And I think if you angle it a little bit differently, I think it could be smart. And I'm looking forward to seeing what it brings. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, that's fine too. I feel like there's this notion of like, at least it's something, which is true. I think that's a good thing. Overall, this should be a good thing. In a climate where we didn't have this stupid anti-Disney fan rage crap, this would be good news in any other climate where just the fan consensus on everything wasn't just misery. The way we talk, it makes it sound like they got a deal for it to be a Tubi original. That would be at least it's something. Like, this is kind of a big deal. Like we see with Doctor Who and other things, it might not necessarily work out, but like I said yesterday, it's got a 50-50 chance, which sounds kind of bad, but this is good news. You know, the Power Rangers franchise was currently very dormant. Oddly enough, history repeating itself yet again, where it's been less than a year before a new revival comes out. But I'm optimistic, but if it falls through, there's so many other franchises to enjoy, and we'll just have to see what the future holds. But I'm excited to see what happens next and hopefully get more steady updates. But let me know your thoughts on the comments. I hope I clarified some things for some people. I'll obviously know more, as you guys will, as the news comes out, but I just wanted to address some things that people were confused about, especially the whole, like, Disney owns it type of thing. It kind of reminds me of how some people still think Bandai owned the show and Saban owned the toys, like vice versa. That confusion happened all the time back in the day, which is weird. Anyways, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for my videos. The Awesome Writer, signing out.